Resident Evil 4 Remake just released, and can we just get a round of applause for Capcom? Yep, give it up. Resident Evil was a series that wasn't exactly a mainstay in my top games list. I mean, I played 4 when I was young, probably too young, and the game had a special place in my heart as my first survival shooter. However, I never got around to playing 1, 2, or 3, and as soon as I tried to look back into the series, Capcom had just released Resident Evil 6, which was a disgusting display to say the least.
I can't believe this.
He said it was some sort of fog.
Why did this have to happen?
Lena, you see one of them. Aim for the head.
The game's story was convoluted and confusing, with multiple campaigns featuring characters that didn't always tie together so well. It was too action-oriented and lost the horror elements that made the earlier games of the series so popular. And there was a bunch of weird QuickTime events that just didn't fit in with the game at all. But how did they go from making one of the biggest disgraces in the survival horror genre to once again running the entire show? Well, I'm glad you asked, nerd.
I'm kind of into a little bit of weird things. Are you fetish friendly?
Because that's exactly what I'm going to be going through today. Hot off of the flop of RE6, Capcom was stumped. Reports say that the team went straight into development for Resident Evil 7, which was starting to feel increasingly similar to its predecessor. Masachika Kawata, producer of the Resident Evil franchise, said, quote, "We were still developing the concept with the same kind of mindset that we had after Resident Evil 6, but it wasn't coming together. The struggle that the team faced to make the series make sense led them to have a change in perspective.
In order to concentrate on the horror aspect, we needed to keep the scope of the game somewhat narrow. We didn't want an expansive playing field, or to have too much clutter around the single-player experience.
They figured instead of having a story that plays out over the outbreak of a city, how about they scale the setting down and focus on character development? And this is a step that I commend them so much for taking. Resident Evil is a AAA title that is definitely an industry giant, and because of this, they easily could have opted for the Assassin's Creed way of doing things, which is just releasing 50 games a year and speedrunning the development of each one of them, as we know Ubisoft does. But this is the true concept of creativity, problem solving, trying to find that final or first puzzle piece of an image only you can think of. A really cool part of the development for this game was the CGI film that Capcom made as somewhat of a concept demo. They even had the film sent to other Capcom offices to get the reaction, to which the responses were amazing. A large part of why RE7 was so successful in recapturing the essence of horror in the franchise was the switch to first-person camera. All of the RE games in the past had been third-person, which was definitely the hardest thing to get behind for me personally. I mean, if you know me, you know I hate third-person games, but especially in survival horror. In RE4, the biggest thing I had to overlook was the fact that whenever you aimed with your gun, you physically stopped in your tracks. Like, what kind of nonsense is that? You're getting chased by thousands of monsters and you just plant your feet firmly? And apparently in 1, 2, and 3, the third-person camera was fixed, meaning it stayed in one position and never moved. To be honest, I don't know how the idea of a first-person camera for Resident Evil only dawned on them now at the 7th game of the series, but whatever, I'm glad that it did. Overall, Resident Evil 7 was a complete reinvention of the series, and once again proves that taking risks as a AAA company is always the best way forward, as opposed to playing it safe. After the announcement of Resident Evil 8, I think everybody was on the tip of their toes, waiting to see what the team could do with the formula that they made. It was a mixture of excitement, but also fear that they might mess up along the way like they've done in the past. They were 1 for 1 with Resident Evil 7, but they could have easily made a lackluster game in response to their success. One thing that I was glad to see, though, was the return of Ethan Winters. I think that he's a well-written character in comparison to what they've written in the past. He's a character that's easy to relate to because he's a family man, it's a very easy character to write, but it's a very effective character to play in video games.
Thanks. When we get out of here, drinks are on me.
Yeah, hey, I know a good bar.
The story behind 8 was basically you needed to go to this village to find your daughter, and common survival horror things start to ensue. What impressed me about this game is that it actually drew a lot of inspiration from Resident Evil 4, and kind of tweaked it to be its own sort of feeling. This game was criticized for not being as horrific as 7, but I think that the team knew that when they were producing it. It's more supposed to feel like a storybook adventure game, and that's what I see it as. Instead of horror, they focused on how fun the game can get, and I will say, I had a lot more fun playing this one than I did 7. That doesn't mean I rated higher than 7, I think I still like 7 more as a survival horror game, but this one has a lot more replayability and they knew what to hide in different nooks and crannies to make it really enjoyable to play. If anything, I saw this as a victory lap for Capcom. They were saying, hey, we know how to do this, we have the formula, and now we're just having a little bit of fun with it. And after finishing this game, I remember thinking, yep, I am fully a fan of Resident Evil now. Like, I am fully down for the ride. I'm excited for 9, I'm excited for 10, and I'm in for the long run. It's inspiring to see what the crew has done with the game up until this point, and it just shows how passionate they are for the project. Which is a good segue into my next point, the remakes. So a lot of the time, remakes just annoy me in the gaming industry because most of them just exist so you can sell your old game on a new platform. So basically you're just left with a company jerking themselves off and saying, hey, give us more of your money for a product you've already gotten and that we've done nothing to improve outside of the visuals. But the reason I wanted to give Resident Evil's remakes their own section in this video was to just appreciate how much they do in these remakes. Not only do they take their old games and make them exist on a new engine, they also try to add new story elements that shed a light on the more dim aspects of a storyline, fleshing out characters that didn't feel very fleshed out, and giving new dialogue to empty, dry dialogue. I mean, seriously, it's the most effort I've seen put into a remake in the entire game industry, I want to say. Most people opt for the lazy way out, but these remakes show me that they're not afraid of hard work. And it's also the fact that they're doing it in such a short time frame. I'm happy to see 4's remake being received so well, and I'm curious if they're going to remake 5 or 6. I mean, I'd be down for it. You know, if they released a 6 remake, I would be down to play it, which is fascinating to say because I don't think a game remake has ever made me look back on a game I previously thought was garbage. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Let's move on to the conclusion. Conclusion time once again. Mike! Not a lot more that I want to say about this. Cheers to Capcom. Cheers to the whole Resident Evil team. I really enjoy what they're doing lately. If you haven't tried Resident Evil and you're looking for a reason to get into it, definitely start at 7 and then, you know, play 8 if you're feeling it, and then work your way backwards. I think that's the best way to go about doing it, just because the story elements and the ideas that are explored in the older ones are still a bit dated, but once you're down for the cause of what they're trying to do and once you understand what they're trying to do, it all becomes a lot easier. In the coming games, I'd like to see more weapon variety and maybe a little bit more fluidity in the story. You know, not to the point where we're doing what we were doing in the past with 6, but just, you know, a little bit more depth to some of the characters. And that's really it, you know. Support the developers, and we need more of this in AAA gaming. And they're setting an example for everybody right now. They're saying, hey, do this level of work so that you can get this level of success, and you can re-release all of your past games. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you like the video, subscribe if you want to subscribe, you know, as always. And I'm gonna do the fade out now. I'm on my way. What should I do for the fade out? I sang a song last time, so I can't sing a song. It feels like a little bit unoriginal if I were to do that. Maybe I'll just, I don't know, man. Dance. You can't hear me dance though, so it's just kind of weird.